So in this video I would like to talk about my experiences in stripping and why I chose to become a stripper. I am no longer doing this anymore, but it has been a journey that I've been going through over the past 2 years, and I feel like it's time for me to be able to share a little bit more about my experience of what it gave me. Now, under no circumstances am I promoting women to go stripping. This is actually the last thing that I would recommend. Um, I have actually been creating workshops and work around feminine embodiment and owning certain aspects of our sexuality and sensual expression, because through my experiences stripping, I recognized how needed it was for women and how much women were craving to own this stripper archetype within themselves, the erotic archetype. So I developed workshops for women to embody these aspects of themselves, and this is a redirection in the possible interest for women to go stripping. So for me, it's really important to say this before I go any further, because I have noticed that in some of the workshops that I've given, women have become inspired to do this, and it's really not my intention at all with my work. So my personal journey around stripping and why I actually began to do this is coming from my own wounding with the feminine, actually, and well, really my own wounding in my sexuality in general. Since I was 12 years old, I basically looked like this, except with a few less wrinkles on my face. And I was fully developed by the time I was 12, 13 years old. And I was being sexualized by men at this time because I had breasts, I had sexual energy coming off me. I began to have this experience with men looking at me in a particular way. And on the contrary, with my relationship to women, I actually had women repelling against me. I remember on my first day of high school, I was dressed in my school uniform, I was still a virgin, and I walked past a group of girls and they called me a slut. And it was a very confusing time for me coming into my teenage years because of this relationship I was having with people related towards myself. And I started to feel like there was something wrong with me. I couldn't really quite understand what was going on, and I just dealt with it. It was not something I was consciously processing, but reflecting back on my past experiences, I felt for sure that there was something wrong with me. So my relationship with women, I always had girlfriends, but I never really felt safe with women, and especially groups of women, I tried to stay away from them as much as possible because, I simply did not feel safe. I felt like they would judge me and reject me if I was to be around them. So I cultivated more of a relationship with men because it was a lot safer, and obviously I felt them desiring me, which made me feel like I was having approval, love, and validation from them, which is what most of us are looking for. So then we begin to cultivate strategies in our life that support and facilitate that process of being and feeling validated by others. When I became about 22 years old, I found myself, after studying psychotherapy, in a Tantric yoga school in Thailand. And this experience really helped me to develop a deeper understanding of sacred sexuality, of Tantra as a spiritual system, and how my sexual energy, how my femininity is a path in itself towards reaching deeper states of my own being, towards guiding me to my own truth. So I began to thankfully recognize the sacredness of my femininity, the sacredness of my sensuality, and also see how beautiful it is when you are in an environment where women are celebrating each other's sensual and sexual expression, which is what I found in this community in Thailand. I finally felt like I was accepted by the feminine, and this was something very nourishing and healing for me. However, I still felt I needed to heal on a more productive level the aspects of my sexuality that I felt was still not integrated. And it came up in conversation around this whole aspect of me being a Scorpio woman as well, that we love to express our sensuality, our sexuality, that we do have a lot of this energy. And it was still parts of myself that I didn't want to accept because it felt unsafe to accept this part and really embody this part within myself truly. And it wasn't about going and having sex with multiple men and becoming like a slut archetype or anything like this, but to feel as though it was safe within myself to be a sensual woman and express my sensuality. So what I decided to do was become a stripper. And I felt after going through quite a lot of my own psychological work and having the background of Tantra in my realm of understanding in my relationship to myself and the world and people, I decided that this was probably going to be a really good way to heal the unintegrated parts of my own erotic archetype, my own erotic expression. When I went into the strip club for the first time, I was pretty freaked out by the whole experience because I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into. I was in a club in Melbourne in Australia where it was a no-touching club, and I was struggling a lot also to accept the fact that I wanted to do this because I was in a relationship with a man, and he was from Italy as well, so there was lots of fears around judgment of not being a good housewife material for my Italian man that I was with at the time, and having fears of his family judging me because of the kind of religious and cultural conditioning coming from this background, and then of course having my own parents who are quite open, having their own things come up around me. So it was a really big process of doing something for myself, and as much as possible trying to let go of the need of people accepting me. So and on the contrary, actually, I felt very supported and accepted by my friends and eventually my family when I did tell them, and my partner was so supportive for me in this time. It helped me so much more in my experience, having my partner, even though he was going through all his own personal struggles as a man, having his girlfriend going stripping, having this unconditional love and support really, really helped me in my process of healing. So the main reason that I wanted to go stripping was because I wanted to feel accepted in fully embracing my sensual and sexual erotic expression in an environment that was facilitating that space. Yes, it is the sex industry, and what I'm going to be talking about is by no means going on a spiritual bypass of what is going on in the sex industry, because it is a very dark place and they are using women's bodies for entertainment and to make money. So I am not putting a blind spot to that at all. I'm very conscious and aware of that aspect, and everything has its shadow. So this is something I also learnt to embrace and accept whilst being in there. But I went in there because I wanted to, as I've said, really be embraced in my erotic Scorpio sensual expression. And the moment that I walked into the strip club, into the downstairs area of the change room, I felt so at home being with probably 60, 70 women, all completely naked, getting ready. All the women embracing their sensuality, their sexual expression, and celebrating this with one another. And yes, there's all the bullshit, the competition, and all this stuff at the end of the day in there. However, 90% of my experience was women actually embracing this part of femininity. And to be able to be with such a large amount of women where the sexual expression was accepted and honored in its own way. And again, everyone's there under their own personal experience, intentions, levels of consciousness and stuff like this, but collectively there was an acceptance. And I realized how much wounding there is in the feminine psyche of neglecting this part of woman, this part of femininity. Women have such a deep feeling of competition and repulsion against other women who are confident, who are embracing their sensuality, embracing their sexuality. And this started to reveal to me how important it is for women in humanity in general to start accepting and celebrating. I'm using this word a lot, celebrating, because this is really what it was about. Celebrating other women's confidence, celebrating other women's sensual empowerment. And again, this has nothing to do with going and making love with men and being sexually empowered in this way. I'm talking about the sexual empowerment of a woman who knows that there is nothing wrong with her for being sensually and sexually confident within herself and having a level of personal autonomy and self-love in the domain of her femininity. And this began to heal me so deeply, to be in an environment with women where we were exchanging and sharing this field of sexuality with one another. Also going into a space where I could be seen in expressing my sensuality, my eroticism, having men sitting before me and dancing on stage and completely being in love with myself, feeling my sexual and sensual energy channeling through me while I was dancing and offering myself through my dance to the masculine and being witnessed and seen. Yes, it's derogatory. Yes, they are looking at me like a piece of meat. And yes, I also transformed their experience with me because of the energy that I was invoking. I was subliming my own sexual energy. I was hypnotizing them through a power of love that was coming through my dance. And this was all done very consciously. I also discovered that being a Scorpio woman, how Scorpios actually feed off desire. And this is something that I always felt quite ashamed about, actually, is this notion of feeding off desire. But what I found is accepting my shadow and accepting that, yeah, I fucking love it when people are desiring me. I love it when men desire me. It makes me feel good. And it feels so good to say that and own that. And once I was able to own that aspect of myself, I was able to transform that feeling and that need of being desired into a meditative spiritual experience within myself. I was able to use the energy of desire that men were projecting upon me and channel this up. So I began having quite strong Kundalini risings and lots of energy risings while I was dancing on stage and while I was doing one-on-one striptease dances with men as well. Because there was a level of transfiguration that I was imprinting in this experience with men. So the Tantric principles of polarity of masculine and feminine, of using transfiguration. Transfiguration is the path and the goal in Tantra of seeing the divine in manifestation, basically, but working one-on-one in the domain of men and women to see the divine masculine and feminine within each other and go beyond the masks, go beyond the physicality of the being into the true essence of ourself. And especially in lap dances, this was a moving meditation for me of the masculine and feminine. It was an experience of going completely beyond the sexualization of what was happening and experiencing pure awareness of two people meeting one another and delving deep into a space of a dance of polarity. So there was so much beautiful experiences whilst stripping, beautiful experiences of being able to liberate my own sexual energy and dance with my erotic energy and connect deeply to myself. And it had nothing to do with anyone else besides me connecting to myself in those moments. And celebrating other women and myself as sexually empowered erotic dancers, and being in service to the masculine, healing the masculine and healing the aspects of the masculine that deeply crave to be accepted, of appreciating a woman. These days, men are reprimanded for appreciating a woman. If a man is whistling at a woman on the street, she'll say "fuck off," or men have become kind of wimpy in their appreciation to women, which actually has nothing to do with that being their fault. As society and culture, we are not allowing men to appreciate women, and I also understand it. We have such a suppressed and very bad education around the appreciation of the feminine and also the masculine in society and culture, because of porn, because of media, because of Hollywood movies, all these different things, that we've really lost the essence of worshipping the feminine. And in my experiences in the strip club, I was able to really educate men on how to do this, and educate them on a level of transfiguration towards the feminine, and also do that towards myself. So overall, my experience came through as a very deeply spiritual experience for me. And also I got very sick energetically, even though psychologically and to a degree spiritually I was quite aware of what was going on for me. Energetically, I still absorbed a lot of negativity. I was sick for like 1 year after I first started stripping, and I would not want to do it again for this reason. But in the 2 years on and off that I did experience this, I healed so much of my own sensual suppression and self-judgment, and was able to really liberate this experience into a worship of my own divine feminine. So this is a lot of the work that I'm helping women do one-on-one now and in my workshops, is to integrate the erotic archetype and reframe as well our idea of eroticism and femininity, because it is different for every woman, and help women celebrate each other's sensual and sexual expression, free from the fear of competition with another woman, of threat with another woman, and help each other heal the wounds of the feminine, heal the wounds of the lost erotic archetype that the patriarchal mentality, the religious mentality has infused collectively within our psychology, and step back into the self-love of the feminine and the worship of the feminine.